this meeting to order. Without objection, the chair is authorized to declare a recess at any time. I want to thank everyone, especially our witnesses, for joining us today for our committee's hybrid hearing. I want to make sure to note some important requirements. Let me begin by saying that standing House and committee rules and practice will continue to apply during hybrid proceedings. All members are reminded that they are expected to adhere to these standing rules, including decorum. During the covered period as designated by the Speaker, the committee will operate in accordance with House Resolution 965 and the subsequent guidance from the Rules Committee in a manner that respects the rights of all members to participate. House regulations require members to be visible through a video connection throughout the proceeding, so please keep your cameras on. Also, if you have to participate in another proceeding, please exit this one and log in later. In the event a member encounters technical issues that prevent them from being recognized for their questioning, I will move to the next available member of the same party, and I will recognize that member at the next appropriate time slot, provided they return to the proceedings. And finally, remember to remain muted until you are recognized to minimize background noise. In accordance with the rules established under House Resolution 965, staff have been advised to mute participants only in the event there is inadvertent background noise. For those members physically present in the committee room today, we will also be following the health and safety guidelines issued by the attending physician, which include social distancing, especially the use of masks. I urge members and staff to wear masks at all times while in the hearing room, and thank you in advance for your commitment to a safe environment here today. I am pleased to be holding this important hearing today to learn more about the Small Business Administration's information technology systems, IT modernization efforts, and cybersecurity strategy. SBA has counted on its technology systems to implement the programs that help entrepreneurs launch and grow their small businesses. And millions of small businesses have relied on them over the past few months to access the assistance they need to survive the coronavirus pandemic. I would like to thank Mr. Guy Cavallo, the Deputy Chief Information Officer for SBA, for being here today to discuss SBA's efforts to modernize its systems and address some of the technical issues that have hampered the rollout of economic relief programs. Ineffective IT systems have been a persistent problem at SBA. While significant progress has been made to upgrade the system in recent years, the magnitude of the pandemic has demonstrated the need for more modern systems that are safer, faster, and more efficient at delivering services to America's small businesses. 6 months after the first confirmed case in the US, our country remains in the grips of the coronavirus pandemic. Small businesses have relied on Congress and SBA to help them survive the necessary state-ordered public health lockdowns, restrictions on operating capacity, and significant revenue losses resulting from our fight to contain this virus. This crisis has made it necessary for unprecedented numbers of small businesses to rely on your agency's technology to access loan applications, connect to their local resource partners, find, translate resources, and answer their urgent questions in a timely manner. However, several technical issues have arisen during the pandemic, making it both frustrating and difficult for small businesses to receive the relief they need in a timely manner. This committee acknowledges the toll that this unprecedented level of activity has taken on SBA systems, and we commend you and your staff for working around the clock to fix several of the issues. The coronavirus has placed a historic burden on SBA, and we in Congress must ensure that you have the resources you need to assist the American people. But many of these system weaknesses have been known for years and should have been addressed and modernized long before this pandemic. In fact, some of the issues were brought to SBA's attention as early as 2014 by the Government Accountability Office. And in fact, there was a 2011 report from the GAO before that. According to the Committee on Oversight and Reform's IT scorecard, SBA has made improvements to its IT infrastructure overall, but is still scoring a D on cybersecurity. This is particularly concerning given the cybersecurity breach that occurred with the IDLE application. In late March, SBA detected a vulnerability in the IDLE application, which allowed applicants' personally identifiable information to be viewed by other applicants. Even more troubling, the individuals that were potentially affected were not notified until mid-April, nearly 20 days after the data breach. And the notification was simply a paper letter. The committee heard from several recipients who were inquiring whether it was a scam or a verifiable document. At the time, SBA had failed to make any public announcement about the breach, again showing a lack of transparency that had been a consistent concern for the committee throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. Affected businesses lost their place in the queue, were forced to reapply, and then were shut out of the program when SBA inexplicably limited applications to only agricultural businesses. We recognize that your office was not directly involved in those decisions, but they demonstrate the tremendous downstream impacts faced by small businesses that were affected by the initial IT system failure. Other problems that arose during the pandemic were related to SBA's loan processing system, eTran, which is a legacy system that SBA had planned to replace in an effort to modernize its IT infrastructure. The issues concerning eTran are not new. In 2014, the GAO reported that SBA may be unprepared for a large volume of applications to be submitted quickly following future disasters, which could result in delays in loan funds for disaster victims. And in this report, SBA actually stated that eTran would be replaced by 2015. However, in 2020, SBA is still relying on the same system. Shortly after the launch of the Paycheck Protection Program portal, the system was inundated by applicants, causing it to go offline for 4 hours. The system then crashed again a second time when the PPP portal reopened in late April. While we recognize that SBA quickly increased bandwidth to increase the system, to address the system crashing both times, the agency cannot rely on a system that is incapable of meeting high demand in a crisis. The committee plans to explore what steps must be taken to improve SBA's IT systems moving forward in order to prevent these issues from reoccurring should Congress reauthorize or authorize further small business assistance as we continue to fight the virus, or if a natural disaster should strike and compound the stress on SBA's systems. It's imperative that SBA's technology systems be modernized to meet the demands of the 21st century. With that, I look forward to hearing from Mr. Cavallo on the changes SBA plans to implement to its technology systems and what he needs from Congress in order to address these technical failures to ensure the SBA IT infrastructure is fully prepared in the future. I now yield to the ranking member, Mr. Ross Spano, for his opening statement.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. While all of the oversight hearings we hold in this committee are important, examining the state of the SBA's information technology is truly one of the most vital. We live in an era dominated by modern technology and the internet. So there's little else that has changed the way we live our lives so dramatically. This pandemic has underscored our reliance on modern technology to do almost anything and everything, from running a successful business and allowing employees to telework to socializing while maintaining social distancing. Technology has been and will continue to be critical in allowing the private sector and public government to respond to and recover from this pandemic. The SBA is no exception. As technology continues to improve, implementing innovative technological solutions to streamline manual processes or upgrade legacy systems are actions that any responsible federal agency should consider. Once these new technologies are deployed, it is imperative that the agency ensure they are secure, operational, and meet mission objectives. For instance, the SBA's decision to move from mail-in, paper-based application processes to online loan and contracting applications certainly has advantages for both the agency and the participant. Unfortunately, it also comes with a host of other challenges. For instance, vulnerability to computer bugs, data breaches, and cyber attacks. As has been widely reported in the news, the technological systems supporting the Paycheck Protection Program suffered from a number of these mishaps. Reports regarding the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program have not fared well. While the EIDL Advance program intended to provide emergency grants to small businesses within 3 days of their application being filed, the SBA took nearly 6 weeks to approve less than 1% of the total application backlog. Even though I appreciate the SBA's recent efforts to meet the surging demand, reports show that little more than a third of the amount Congress authorized to support the EIDL program has been approved. Adding insult to injury, a glitch in the EIDL portal led to nearly 8,000 EIDL applicants' personal information being compromised, including Social Security numbers, birth dates, and addresses. I cannot overstate just how dire the situation is for small businesses everywhere in this country, including in my own district. They need these funds now. And if technology is the solution or the problem, we need to take appropriate action immediately. Addressing the issues with SBA's loan programs is not the only reason why I'm interested in hearing from you today, Mr. Cavallo. As the SBA continues to invest in new technologies, it's imperative that the agency ensures that the investment was worth it, that the outcome achieves the intended goals. The SBA has made some questionable IT investments into its contracting and business development programs, making various attempts to streamline application processes and enhance staff oversight and management of these programs. Unfortunately, we've seen some of these investments fail in the past. And I understand the SBA is now investing in a new technological initiative called certify.sba.gov, to which over $27 million has already been spent, but the system has not yet fully realized its intended purpose. Indeed, according to the Committee on Oversight and Reform's December 2019 Federal Information Technology Acquisition Reform, or FITARA report, the SBA received a C grade for its IT portfolio management, indicating that the Office of Management and Budget found the SBA demonstrated poor management of commodity IT spending and alignment with agency mission and business functions. Also deeply troubling is the D grade that the SBA received in the FITARA report for cybersecurity, indicating severe deficiencies in cybersecurity measures taken by the SBA. I understand that we live in unprecedented times and the wheels of government often move slower than the pace of technology. However, we have to strive to do better and be better. Small businesses across the country depend on the SBA to get it right, and we must do all we can to ensure the agency's success. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I yield back.
Take a moment to explain how this hearing will proceed. Each witness will have 5 minutes to provide a statement, and each committee member will have 5 minutes for questions. Please ensure that your microphone is on when you begin speaking and that you return to mute when finished. With that, I'd like to introduce Mr. Guy Cavallo, the Deputy Chief Information Officer at SBA. In this capacity, Mr. Cavallo provides leadership and direction in the creation, development, and execution of the agency's information technology management programs. He was previously the Executive Director of IT Operations at Transportation Security Administration. He's also had an impressive career in the private sector implementing innovative technologies in government organizations. We welcome you to the committee, and you are now recognized for 5 minutes.
Chairman, Chairwoman Chu, Ranking Member Spano, and members of the subcommittee, thank you for the opportunity to discuss how the Small Business Administration has modernized and transformed.
Excuse me, sir. Could you make sure your microphone is on?
The button's on. How's that?
That's perfect.
There we go. Thank you. Again, thank you for the opportunity to talk about how SBA has modernized and transformed its IT and cybersecurity capabilities, which we know are critical to enhancing our service delivery to citizens and small businesses. In July 2017, SBA Chief Information Officer Maria Rote testified before the House Small Business Committee describing her vision for a 21st century SBA. Today, SBA has turned much of her vision into reality. With the strong executive leadership and support of Administrators Carranza and McMahon, SBA is now viewed as a technology leader in the federal government. Over the past 3.5 years, we have implemented the necessary building blocks to deliver and accelerate our IT modernization. That foundation includes a reliable network infrastructure and leveraging the power of the cloud. In early 2017, I served as the executive sponsor of SBA's cloud journey. Within 82 days, we built SBA's first cloud, an accomplishment that may take others a year plus to achieve. With that network and cloud platform in place, SBA could now leverage those foundations to meet our critical role in the upcoming CARES Act. Having SBA's cloud operational and leveraging commercial cloud services to support our modernization efforts were critical in our overnight move to nearly 100% telework status for the SBA staff, and for the thousands of surge workers who may never work in an actual SBA office. I also want to highlight that one of the most significant benefits of moving to the cloud has been the tremendous improvement in our cybersecurity protections. For example, since April of 2018, our security team has partnered with DHS to take down 1,380 malicious websites that we uncovered by stopping phishing attempts into SBA. Now, based upon our enhanced cybersecurity capabilities, we conducted 2 pilots with DHS to validate the cloud protections. Our pilots on the Trusted Internet Connection and the Continual Diagnostic and Mitigation programs allowed us to successfully demonstrate alternative ways of meeting the goals of those programs. And our results led DHS to modify the federal security policies for those programs. In addition to those cybersecurity capabilities, we leveraged the cloud to build new CARES Act solutions, including a new portal for the $10,000 EIDL advances, a front end to the lender gateway for banks to access the E-Trans system, an updated Find a Lender tool to display eligible lenders of the PPP program by zip code, and a new customer service hub for better tracking all the millions of citizen requests we receive. All of these new solutions were implemented within 8 days or less. My team worked round the clock to make sure that we had these in place as fast as possible. We also accelerated implementing GSA's Login.gov Common Identity Management solution, which allows a small business to use one set of credentials when accessing any SBA system or any other government portals that adopted Login.gov. However, I do want to acknowledge that until these new systems were in place, several of the legacy systems did experience outages and slow response times from the overwhelming demand. For example, the Disaster Loan Access Portal began suffering outages due to the demand exceeding its capacity. Within a day, we implemented a replacement interim cloud solution to intake loan applications until the final replacement EIDL rapid intake portal was ready. However, while making multiple system changes in the middle of the night in such a short time, a mistake was made in one of the system's configuration, which accidentally exposed PII data for some individuals. Within 3 hours, we discovered that exposure and quickly fixed the problem. And to support the potential exposure of those individuals that may have been exposed, we have offered free credit monitoring services. There is still much to do, but the positive steps taken over the last 3.5 years have positioned SBA to be able to continue modernizing our legacy systems, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak to that today, and I look forward to the committee's questions.
Thank you, Mr. Cavallo. I will begin by recognizing myself for 5 minutes for questions. Mr. Cavallo, it wasn't just a few persons who had their data exposed. It was 8,000 individuals. There were so many egregious things that happened in that situation where idle data was exposed, that the data of small business owners who were trying to get relief from COVID-19. And it caused SBA to tell the applicants to reapply. They lost their place in line, and the applications were subsequently closed to anyone who wasn't in the agricultural industry. So, Mr. Cavallo, how did this breach happen, and what specific steps did SBA take to fix the issue that caused the data breach? Also, the breach occurred on March 25th. Why did it take until April 13th for SBA to notify these small businesses who may have been affected?
I want to thank you for asking that question. First of all, I want to clarify that we did not suffer a data breach. We suffered a data exposure. The big difference is that there was no data break-in, any download of data. They're both serious, but a potential data exposure is quite different. I said that we were not breached. I can tell you how it happened. My staff was working round the clock, pulling all-nighters, trying to get the new loan portal set up as fast as possible. A human error was made at 6 a.m., which caused the potential for that exposure to occur. And within 3 hours, we implemented taking the portal down and limiting the exposure. We followed our standard procedures for dealing with a PII exposure, which means we reported it immediately to US CERT within an hour. We convened our executive response team on March 29th. That team decided to make sure that everybody that was potentially a user during those 3 hours would receive credit monitoring services. And then, we don't have in place a contract to pay for credit monitoring services, so we had to go to GSA to compete the credit monitoring services, which we did on the March 29th and 30th. Once that was awarded, we brought the vendor on board. They reviewed the logs and found that there were some logs that we didn't have valid addresses and information, and then they were able to issue the letter on April 13th to those individuals offering credit monitoring, free call center, a call center to be able to call toll-free and provide support. I would have liked that to be faster, but that was how it took that period of time to get there.
Well, what it shows is that there clearly needs to be improvement in SBA's IT. And I noted that there have been GAO reports since 2011 expressing concern about this. And then GAO did another report in 2014, which said that SBA was not prepared for large volumes of application that could come in after a disaster. Now, I acknowledge that SBA has made some improvements to its technology system in the IT scorecard, but in the most recent scorecard, the SBA received a D on cyber security, which was its lowest mark in any category. So what has been the holdup to improvements in this area, and what specific steps is SBA taking to improve, particularly on cybersecurity?
Yes, one thing I do want to point out that we, the way the cybersecurity score is calculated, there's two different criteria. One is an assessment from our Inspector General, and our Inspector General uses the OMB maturity model that measures 8 different domains. To receive a higher score in that, you have to have no KPMG findings in the domain. It is one of the toughest scores to be able to attain. My understanding is only one federal agency has been able to achieve the top score. The other component of that is how you're performing on your cross-agency cap goals. In the last 2 years, we've moved from a 30% cap goal being implemented to 80%. So ma'am, we are taking it very seriously, and we are working hard to get that score up. We think the combination of those scores do not accurately reflect where we are today. Otherwise, DHS would not have selected us to pilot 2 critical cybersecurity pilots with them that have changed federal policy. And in fact, they've asked us now to help them implement the CDM program in a new cloud-based solution. So we realize how the scores were obtained. We have taken many steps to improve our cybersecurity. I highlighted the number of websites we're taking down. We have full visibility of all attempts to get into SBA. We also, with the PPP and EIDL loans, we implemented geofencing so that a foreign adversary applying from a foreign country could not even get to the loan system. So we're radically different from where we were in 2012 or 2014. Still work to be done, but we would like to see that score increase. I mean, over the last 3 years, we've gone from a D- to a B+, and right now we have the 3rd highest FITARA score in government.
Thank you. My time has now expired. The ranking member, Mr. Spano from Florida, is now recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Mr. Caballo, I assume that the SBA must have anticipated that a wave of applications were going to be incoming through the E-Trans system once the PPP and EIDL launched. However, we all know there were concerns about that early on, portal crashing, other technical difficulties that occurred right there at the start. Were any actions taken or undertaken or any efforts made to prepare for what it would seem to me would have been an anticipated load on the E-Trans system?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that question. Yeah, the E-Trans system is not managed by the Office of the Chief Information Officer. We partner with our business offices to do that. It definitely is on our list of systems that need to be modernized, and we're following the CIO Council's application rationalization playbook to determine how to modernize. That's going to be a long-term project, sir, and that's something that we could not do between March 1st and when this all hit. The steps that my office specifically took was that we doubled the network connectivity speed because we knew there was this influx of people coming. That took a week or two to happen, but we were able to get ahead of the surge exceeding the demand. We also built that front-end lender gateway as a cloud-based application to basically take the load off on some of the front of E-Tran to allow our small banks to apply easier. And then we work with our partner, the Office of Capital Access, to spread out their workday. So instead of getting hit with all the applications coming in at 9 a.m. from certain banks, they spread out the schedule to be able to take applications throughout the day. Those are all things that we could do now to lessen the demand on E-Tran. The last thing we did is we approved a significant hardware investment to up the horsepower of the E-Tran system. As I said, it's going to take time to modernize that system. It's a very complex financial system. So those were the things we could take to support it. Definitely there were issues and there were trouble along the way, but each of these steps help lessen the impact or reduce them from happening in the future.
Does the continued challenges apparently that you still have with the E-Trans system, are those impacting the pace, the slow pace at which the EIDL loans are being processed?
I don't think I can answer that. I think that's more of a program office answer on how they're handling the processing. Like I said, the system is up and running.
I guess my question is you mentioned that problems with PPP and EIDL were a function of or based on the fact that the E-Tran was not built to sustain that level of demand. What I'm asking you is the EIDL demand still such that E-Tran cannot handle the load?
No, from everything I've seen, we seem to be handling the load now.
Okay. So that's not, E-Tran is not the reason for apparently the slowdown and the slow process of EIDL.
Yeah,
as far as you're concerned.
Yeah, from the technology side, I'm seeing that it's up and that the connectivity's there.
Gotcha. So the SBA received an additional $2.1 billion for SBA salaries and expenses intended to help the agency staff up in order to meet the need generated by the pandemic. Can you tell us how this money has been spent so far?
I can address how we've spent it in the OCIO
with respect
office.
to your area.
Yeah, with us basically increasing the side of SBA by about 500%, I knew immediately that our IT help desk, our network operations center, monitoring and making sure that our networks are working fine, our security operations center providing cybersecurity, those were all designed for 3,000 to 4,000 users, not well over 12,000. So we have used the funds to help supplement that, and my staff working in those areas to make sure that the connectivity is there, that the cybersecurity protections are there, that we're not being overwhelmed by it. It's been a slow process to ramp that up. We're using both temporary federal employees and contractors to do that. So in our office, yes, we're well on the way of staffing up to deal with this increase of size.
Okay. I only have 20 seconds left, but you talk about in your testimony that you discuss in your testimony using webcasts to connect with small businesses. It saved thousands of dollars over the SBA's previous teleconferencing solution. My question is, are there any other uses of existing technology in your arsenal that can be deployed to find other cost savings benefits?
Yeah, one of the things we did is we stood up a virtual command center, which saved us the cost of setting up a command center for our senior leadership to get together. Definitely the web conferencing, we can host 10,000 businesses at once now at no cost, no extra cost, when before that would have cost us thousands of dollars. Leveraging the cloud is keeping us from buying more hardware, so that's also been a significant impact.
Thank you. I yield back, Chair.
Thank you. The gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman yields back. And now the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Evans, is now recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson and Ranking Member. The IRS announced yesterday that they are establishing a new office to spearhead the efforts to modernize the management of taxpayer cases. The new office will be responsible for updating its outdated IT systems and making several of its process and paper document digits. Would the SBA consider a similar strategy to bring the IT system, infrastructure, and management of documents into the 21st century? And would the Office of the CIO be well suited to implement this strategy?
Yes, thank you for that question. We as an agency, we have adopted the Federal CIO Council's application rationalization playbook. To put that in non-CIO terms, you basically have a methodology to look at each information system and decide, are you going to modernize it where it is? Are you going to move it to the cloud? Or do you need to rewrite it, or do you need to shut the system down? So we are going through our major applications, looking at that first before we start spending money just heading down a modernization path without having a clear direction. What IRS has done is what I see a lot of the other federal agencies doing, and we've been doing that from day one. Over the last 3.5 years, we have modernized major parts of SBA. The financial systems are by far the biggest and most complex ones, so we had to we're taking that on next, but we will work closely with the CFO and Capital Access and ODA on heading down that modernization path. I think until we do that analysis, we won't be able to provide our CFO or our administrator, here's what the cost would be to do this, so that they can come present that to you. But we're doing that homework now.
How could Congress support the SBA in establishing a new office to spearhead IT becoming modern and digital across the entire agency?
Again, we appreciate all offers of help. Today, we have a Chief Technology Office that leads our modernization efforts. I'm not sure that we would ask for anything additional to that. Like I said, we have the methodology in place that we intend to use to make the decisions about modernizing systems, and then through our budget process and through the administrator, we'll come back to Congress and make those requests for funds when we're ready.
In mid-April, the SBA announced that on March the 25th, it discovered that the application system for the idle may have disregarded personal information to other applicants of the program. What personal information was divulged?
Let me check for that, sir. I don't want to give you a wrong answer. Looks like I don't have that information with me. There was a formal report that we filed with US CERT, so I can supply that information with you as a follow-up.
Okay, no problem. Since I'm talking about, for idle application status, the only updates provided are processing and then accepted or rejected. This has caused severe stress for small business owners in my district who have great difficulty checking the status of the application. Is the SBA working on improving the status checking on this loan applications? And let me give you a follow-up real quick. So, what is the timeline for improving loan application status checking?
Again, the Office of the Chief Information Officer does the enterprise networking and connectivity infrastructure. What you're asking about is a program office decision that is run by the Office of Disaster Assistance.
Right.
So I can't answer that for them.
Okay. Real quick, I think I'll yield back to the chair. Meantime.
Thank you. The gentleman yields back. And now the gentleman from Tennessee, Mr. Burchett, is now recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair Lady, Ranking Member. 86% of the PPP loans in Tennessee, in the second district where I represent, are under $150,000. Do you know how many of those are nationwide, and the amount, total amount that would be?
No, sir, that's something that I would not have in the Chief Information Office.
How would I go about getting that?
We can provide that from,
right.
from our business offices that would have that up-to-date data.
Great. If y'all could send that to me, that'd be great. And I've been hearing some complaints the E-Trans system's too complicated, especially for those who are new to SBA lending. What can the SBA do to make its public-facing technology systems more user-friendly?
Again, a very good question. It's something that my team is dedicated to do. A lot of the new programs that I highlighted that we implemented, especially for the CARES Act, are much easier to use than the legacy systems. And whenever we can, for something like E-Tran that we can't modernize overnight, what we're trying to do is put a new front end in front of it so that the small business owner or the citizen is able to more easily interact with the system. We were able to do that successfully for a number of these programs.
Right.
Overall, it is a major initiative to improve the customer experience for any SBA user. I mentioned earlier that we've moved to login.gov, which is a common way of that GSA provides to federal agencies, where before in the past, if you logged into separate SBA systems, you might have to fill out your company's information over and over again. Again, we're taking steps to eliminate that and use more of these common platforms so you have one identity.
Okay. Do you feel that the SBA has the capacity to manage all these new lenders moving forward?
Again, from the CIO's office, we've been able to absorb the 500% increase in staff and support the systems, the program offices that actually work with those lenders, so they would be better able to answer that question, sir.
Okay. All righty. Thank you very much.
Okay, at this point, the gentleman yields back, and at this point, all the members present have asked a question. So we actually have time for a second round of questions. Please be present if you would like to go a second round. I will start by recognizing myself for 5 minutes. Mr. Cavallo, when we arranged this committee hearing, we discovered that your office of the Chief Information Office only oversees 37% of SBA's IT program. And this raises several new concerns, including why SBA would take such a disjointed approach to IT and cybersecurity, and why it did not entrust its chief information officer with managing IT for the PPP and IDLE, and to what extent the deputy CIO was brought in to help when PPP and IDLE both encountered significant technology system failures. So why is the SBA's IT staff decentralized? Who controls the remaining 63%? And how has it helped or hindered SBA's ability to respond to the coronavirus pandemic?
Yes, thank you for that question, ma'am. SBA has long had a history of being decentralized, and one thing in a decentralized world is that you get some of the IT staff closer to the program operations than staying in a central location. What we've done is partner with those offices. Most of those staff members are in the Office of Disaster Assistance and the other program offices. We partnered with them throughout this process. Going back to your question, how involved were we in all of this? We were very involved. None of the program offices went off and worked on their own on this. We put teams together, and like I said, sometimes pulling all-nighters to get these new programs in place so that lenders could apply. There are different models for IT. I said right now at SBA, we're more decentralized, so what we've done over the years is make sure that we have a strong partnership with those offices. The CIO office does have FATARA approval of every IT procurement of $50,000 or more. So if an office tried to do something without having us involved, there is a hard stop that they can't proceed without the CIO. So we've worked very well together. We spend time at each other's conferences and work together as a team. So right now the model is working for us.
But would there be greater improvement if this operation was centralized?
Boy, that is a great political science debate over time. We can find as many people arguing that centralizing everything is better than decentralizing, and we can find just as many people arguing with that. I think, Madam Chairman, the important part is that we partner together. If we ran independently, I would absolutely give you a different story, but we work so well together that it doesn't matter who we report to, that we're all pulling together in the same path and making sure that we have these systems up and operational as much as possible. So I said I really can't give you a better answer than that.
Were you aware of the deficiencies with the portals used to implement the Paycheck Protection Program prior to its launch? And did the Office of Capital Access request assistance?
As far as deficiencies, I'm not sure which part you're talking about as far as just the recommendation that they be expanded. Just we were working with them on those expansions before that point. Just in the last year, we've added our cybersecurity coverage across their systems, which previously were done independently. So yeah, we've worked well together, and they've asked for our help, and we've jumped in and helped them throughout this process to make sure, like for example, the putting a front end in front of E-Tran was something that we did together. We did not force that on them. They recognized that we had the expertise in our office to do the new cloud-based systems. They had the expertise in E-Tran, and we used both teams together to get that new front end put in as quickly as possible.
And I know you have the CIO has an annual budget of $28 million. Is there what percentage of this is towards improving cybersecurity?
Off the top of my head, I would say that, again, our move to the cloud was our biggest eye-opener on cloud cybersecurity capabilities. So we got a benefit from that right away. We're probably spending 13 million of that on cyber, and everything that we're doing is based on cyber. One thing that my development teams do is we have security built in to it so that it's not an afterthought, So I can't give you a number for all of that because they're part of the team, but we take our cyber very seriously. And in fact, as I mentioned earlier, DHS relies on, has included us as being one of their prime agencies that they go to on how best to do cyber.
Okay, my time has expired, and now I'd like to recognize the ranking member from Florida, Mr. Spano, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Mr. Caballo, you referenced a couple of times now putting a front end onto the system. Can you explain to those of us who are computer illiterates what that means?
Yes, it's great to have IT talk. You can have, even back to the old green screen days, a very difficult and complex screen to fill out that the data goes into an old legacy system. Or we can put a new web page that has drop downs and colors, and you can see exactly where you are, and the data still goes into the legacy system. So that's
It's the way that the user interfaces with the
we've
system, just
simplified-
more user friendly, essentially.
Yeah, we've simplified the user interface, made it easier for them to access the system than the older
Got it.
screens.
But you can't conduct substantive kind of fundamental changes to the system with these front end patches, I guess.
No, that's where you need to do the full
Got it.
modernization and
Got it.
look at the right path to
Got it.
get there.
Okay. It's our understanding that the SBA has spent approximately $27 million on its new certified.sba.gov system. Do you have an updated figure on that?
Yes, I do. If I brought it with me. I will say we are in the process of replatforming. Certify last year, the CIO and the CFO stopped the current development, which was the number that you're referencing. It was custom coded, so it meant that everything had to be written from scratch, and the decision was made that that was not a path to continue down. And what we've done in the last, since November, we've spent $3.5 million to rewrite the WASB program and HubZone are the first two out on software as a service, which simply means instead of writing every line of code to be a database or to be that screen, we leverage the power of pre-existing software. So we just launched the new WASB version last week using that software as a service. It's a platform that we're using across SBA to do our citizen reporting. The ODA team is using it for their disaster portal. So instead of being a standalone custom-built application, we're moving Certify to a common platform that will give us a 360-degree view of all of our interactions with customers. So we're in the middle of that rewrite.
And prior to the Certify system, there was another system that kind of went south, from what I've heard. And now it seems like this one, we were using it for a while, and now we're doing main wholesale changes to it, seems, based on your explanation there. Is that usual to have changes and move to different programs and for them not to be effective and just to move from one to the next? And help me understand, because I'm not a techie, but it just seems like that's very inefficient.
No, so that's a great question. It's all a factor of time. Today, my opinion is if you can have a vendor supply the platform so that they're responsible for doing updates, they're doing the code, things like Office 365. So Microsoft is updating Word and Outlook and all those programs, and then you just write your code on top of that, then you have the power of a major vendor providing your cybersecurity, making sure everything's patched, that any potential breaches or attacks from foreign adversaries are covered. Moving away from custom code to that is absolutely something I would do 100 times out of 100 times.
But that's not what we're operating under currently.
Well,
We're doing that in-house?
The new Certify program that we just launched last week.
It is moving.
That is on this new platform.
I see.
Like I said, we only have WASB as the first one out of the gate. HubZone will be next. But yeah, the rest of the program has a long legacy.
Okay. So let me get your assurance as much as you can give it to me, sitting here, based on the fact that we've kind of failed here a couple of times now at this. Do you feel confident that this new way forward is actually going to work, like we intend it to work?
Yeah,
And it's going to be an appropriate, responsible investment for the American taxpayer?
I said from a technology standpoint, getting out of custom code, whether you put it in the cloud or whether you kept it on premise, absolutely is the right direction to go today. The legacy systems that are all custom code are what's keeping agencies up at night. So I think we've made the right choice and we're heading in the right direction. The Office of Disaster Assistance has 2,500 users already in the new system. So I think what we're seeing differently, instead of being its own standalone system run just by the GCBD office, we're seeing more buy-in to a platform across the SBA offices, which helps us break out of silos of data where if you asked our offices, can you give me data for my district, we actually have to go to different systems to give you that data. Where we're headed to is that will all be a very simple common so that one office knows what your citizen did versus another visiting another office.
I see. Thank you. Madam Chair, I yield back.
Miss Chu, we cannot hear you.
Oh, okay. The gentleman's time has expired. And now the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Evans, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My understanding, this is the first year that the SBA has had the ability to transfer funds to its working capital to upgrade IT equipment. Okay. What are the priorities moving forward then?
Oh, yes, thank you for asking that. Yeah, last year was the first year that SBA was able to implement a working capital fund. So we've had less than a year of having that fund available. And at the end of last fiscal year, we were able to seed that with $6 million. We've set up a governance model at SBA where the CIO and the CFO manage that working capital fund. The office has made proposals.
While you're at it then, can you tell me in addition, what has SBA done with the $6 million then?
Yes, we've made priorities to most of it is going towards modernizing systems. Part of it went to modify the Certify system. We've also put part of it into updating and modernizing the EDMA system. So there's about 4 or 5 different areas. Sir, we did not use it to buy any hardware. We just everything that was put into that fund, we have dedicated to modernizing new systems. I don't know how the end of the fiscal year will end up if we get to supplement that with another influx of money, but right now that's 2-year money. So the programs that we started this year, if they need to go past the fiscal year, we also were counting spending some of that $6 million to keep them going until they're finished, like the EDMIS program. But like I said, this was the first year of the agency having that fund.
My understanding, when the Paycheck Protection Portal was launched, the e-transfer system where lenders submitted borrower applications went offline for as long as 4 hours. But on April 27th, upon reopening, the PP portal crashed again. I heard from many lenders, you can imagine, in my home city of Philadelphia about the frustration in using this system, which caused them much stress. How did the Office of the CIO work with the Office of Capital Access to recidivize the issues and relaunch the system?
Sure. What I mentioned earlier is that one thing that we saw was that the amount of users hitting the traffic from outside was growing tremendously. So we increased the bandwidth connectivity to it so that would not be a limiting factor. And we put in, wherever we could, a new front end to make it easier to access the system, like the lender gateway. There were hiccups along the way because you have a very legacy system and you have brand new system that, I believe we figured out through this time, and it should be much easier and better now, but definitely there were hiccups in the early days with the tremendous volume that we were facing.
So how successful do you think you have been, if you had to kind of rate it in terms as a result of you revisiting it?
I think for an agency the size of SBA to respond to all that we've responded to, that I can't commend higher my staff and the other program offices staff for stepping in. We know that we've talked about it throughout this meeting. In the early days, the first week or two or three, there were significant problems, but everybody jumped into it. So I would give us a pretty high rating today.
I thank you. I thank you, Madam Chair, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Well, thank you, the judges, and now all members have asked their questions. So I would now like to close. And I thank you, Mr. Cavallo, for your testimony today on SBA's technology systems, IT modernization efforts, and how it's addressing its cybersecurity issues. While I understand that the demand on these technology systems is unprecedented, several of these issues were preventable. SBA needs to have an IT infrastructure in place moving forward that can scale and respond to the high volume of applicants in need of support during COVID-19. Several of the technical issues that arose affected the ability of small businesses to access loans, and the complicated and difficult process of applying placed another unnecessary burden on small businesses that were already struggling to stay open. The committee looks forward to working with you in the coming months to address these technical issues and make sure they are working effectively so SBA can implement its programs effectively and meet the needs of millions of small businesses that are relying on you to help them stay afloat. I ask unanimous consent that members have 5 legislative days to submit statements and supporting materials for the record. Without objection, so ordered. And if there is no further business before the committee, we are adjourned.